Hello there, I'm Tim and he's John, and this is How to Murder Time, a video podcast largely about nostalgia.
It's not nostalgia.
It's another one of my memories of the past, my history in MMOs.
This is taunting people. This isn't nostalgia.
Let's see if you can guess what we're playing now, yeah. There I am, it's a deserty landscape, a floaty land speeder thing, there's a binary sunset, we can just see if I go on past him, there we go, pointed, there it is, yeah. Binary sunset, I think we're all looking quite familiar there, most people should know where we are. This is Tatooine, of course, and this...
Now that Star Wars has more than one planet per type...
Yes.
They have two desert planets now.
I thought that wasn't against the design
guidelines. No, the trailer for the new film...
planet, a jungle planet...
Trailer for the new film's a desert planet, and it's not Tatooine.
Okay.
There were people saying, they've got it wrong in the trailer because there was only one star. No, it turns out it was a different planet.
Right.
Yeah.
Anyway, yes, it's May the 4th, so this is Star Wars Galaxies. Yes, and I did record this about a week ago as well, so riddle me that. This is, here we are, entering Mos Eisley.
Well, those rocks come out.
Rocks suddenly appearing
right out
everywhere.
of there.
Map. Okay. So yeah, this is Star Wars Galaxies, the very early Star Wars MMO by Sony Online Entertainment, as it was back then, before they turned into Daybreak and all the rest of it. A game that started in 2003 and closed in 2011?
Yep.
Something like that.
Yes.
Yeah, sort of going back and trying to think back to it all. There's my little character, deciding to run around town and see some civilization and try and find some people to see.
Kill the Sandtrooper.
Sandtroopers, yeah. This is Mos Eisley is clearly under Imperial control here. They changed hands. There was like big rebellions and stuff, and you could have rebel soldiers here instead, depending on how the Galactic Civil War PvP thing went.
Yeah.
So I think I'm heading off to the cantina, the iconic cantina from the films and stuff.
We should possibly
like
point
tourism.
out it is possible still to play this game if you know what you're doing.
Yes. I don't care. I'm going to say this is the SWG MU project. There's a lot of long story there, which I might talk about during some... Oh dear, it's been a murder. I might talk about during some of the more boring bits when I'm running across the desert. But at the moment, we're looking for work. I'm trying to find mission terminals and stuff. And what the friggin' hell's that doing there? There we go. Don't remember that from A New Hope.
Yeah, no.
See, I don't think Luke and Ben would have got much further in there. But oh god, there's been a serial killing. Somebody's added it in for the Jawas. Right, so into the cantina. These blue names are all players.
Wow, so already we're up on the last EverQuest video. And this game's closed.
Yes, this closed game. This is the Basilisk server run by the SWG EMU people, and at time of filming, it had 1,500 players on it, according to the login info. There's quite a few of them here. Some of these people are AFK. This was the dancer and/or musician profession. Which all shook out of the really innovative skill system that they used on the original design of the game. Here I am. Blue milk, please. No? Hello? Anyone?
Service.
This happens to be a lot in real bars as well, so I've just wandered off. There we go. Look at that! The real band! And I don't know if you can hear the backing music going on here, but they
probably can't.
They probably can't, yes, for various copyright reasons probably. But they're playing the actual music and everything. It's great. It's like about the nearest I'm ever going to get to go on the film set of a Star Wars film. There's somebody leaping about with purple hair. So you could target these people, hit the radial menu, and there would be a listen to music or watch dance option, and that would be the way you'd actually heal a whole bunch of mind wounds and battle fatigue and stuff. They tried to create a really sort of fascinating interdependency of different types of classes and professions, and they weren't all just things like warrior, wizard, thief, which is very much a matter of what armour you're allowed to wear and whereabouts do you stand in a fight. A lot of these professions had no combat utility at all. There we go, I'm listening to a musician. There we go, clap, 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 clap. And presumably some of my mind damage is being healed there as we do so.
You don't have any mind damage.
I don't really do a lot of mind fighting, I don't think. This is quite a Lobby character, to be honest, which I tried to specialise and start sort of working up the scouting professions, which is like outdoor wilderness exploring and harvesting hide and meat and things from animals and such like. And also I think I got a bit of brawler on there, which you'll see me doing a bit of later.
I just realised I never got that little S bit to go in from the film.
The little S bit?
Yeah, the way it makes it do the thing so you can't see inside the building. The film doesn't have that.
No. Yeah, but you see that was essentially a kind of dynamic instancing going on. Now, you saw in the EverQuest video when we went into the High Elf City when there was that big S-shaped corridor and a loading screen. There was no loading screens apart from moving between planets. So you go in and out of indoor and outdoor locations, and it was relatively seamlessly. Remember, this is 2003. Relatively... Oh dear, what's happened there? It's a massive screen-shaking explosion. Those speeder bikes were rideable. You could buy them, use them to zoom around the place. They took damage when you got them in and out of inventory, though, and I think when they get very damaged, they start being on fire and exploding and stuff.
Which I think just happened to a...
and those speeder bikes are made by players. Everything was made by players in this game. There was no real loot to speak of. You'd loot junk rubbish sometimes, but there was no weapons or equipment or armour or anything. It all came from players. There was no NPC shops with like an infinite amount of supply you could just go and buy stuff from. You had to work with the markets, you had to work with player crafting, and there were so many crafting professions. Here we go, the med centre.
I remember this place.
As desolate as ever. You played a doctor type, didn't you?
Yeah.
You spent a lot of time in here.
Yeah.
That was pretty much how you had to advance that profession.
Yeah, that was a character for sociable people. I went horribly wrong.
It was a similar mechanic to the musicians and dancers, and yet you look at that canteen and you look at that med centre. I don't know why, but there's just something not very interesting about sitting in a hospital compared to sitting in a seedy space smuggler's bar, I suppose.
It's the amount of alcohol available.
Yeah.
Although there's plenty of alcohol available in the average med centre, it tends to be surgical alcohol.
So here I am running around one of the static cities. There were also player cities. You built houses. Architect profession existed to build houses and furniture and mining machinery and so on. And then you'd place those out in the wilds, but you weren't allowed to place them near cities. So they had to make your own cities in the end. They added a whole proper city thing towards the end of its run. You knew a bit about that.
They added it quite early on,
Was
actually.
it?
Yeah, it was
Okay.
very early. It was surprisingly early. Earlier than I remembered it, but yes, I was mayor of a city.
Yeah.
It killed me.
I was
It
the chief
completely
architect of it.
destroyed me.
It was a lot of work.
It was impossible to resign
So
being
here we are,
mayor.
Mission Terminal. There wasn't really a lot. I mean, they had some what they literally called theme parks, which were little encounter locations full of NPCs from the films like Jabba's Palace or the Emperor's Retreat or so on, where there'd be chains of missions to do. But on the whole, this was about it, really. You'd hit the Mission Terminal, it would have a very rudimentary go somewhere and then beat up an animal nest for some money type mechanic. You could pick two of these. There's some survey missions available there. That's to do with the mineral distributions, which we'll see some more of as we go. So I'm picking up a couple of those. Got to earn a crust. Got to earn some money. This was the only way money came into the system. It was all a bit odd. So you got all this vast and really sort of... whoa, look at all those types of minerals. Yeah, so here I am. I'm looking for some of the minerals there that I've picked off for the mission. And there's the different categories of resource that are available. So we want a particular sort of gemstone there. So we hit the survey button, and there it is. So that's a sort of plan view of the area surrounding me up to about 200 metres out. And there's the percentages. So when you hit that, it then places a little waypoint on the highest density of that resource. Then you run over to that waypoint, do it again. The map will shift to that new location, be centred on that new place, and so on. And you sort of leapfrog your way out to the densest place on the map. So the missions require me to have tagged an 80% or a 75% on that chart, so I need to go somewhere else to find the stuff I need. That's what I'm going to be doing mostly through this. There's a bit of combat out there as well, a bit of wilderness survival.
Are you trying to remember how to do it at this
I'm
point?
trying to remember how the interface works, yes. It's been a while. Yeah, so it's the usual sort of thing. Mini-map in the corner, chat window, hotkeys along the top, and your various waypoint data storage windows and such like. This is all. Remember the context of all this, though. This is 2003. I don't think we'd seen mini-maps prior to then. I think Asheron's Call 2 was around that sort of time. I think maybe they dabbled with it. I can't remember, but this SWG Emu project it's actually quite interesting. They started working on that a long time before the game actually got closed in 2011 because they didn't like the combat upgrade. And I probably might need to explain what that was all about, all that kerfuffle, to be honest. The game launched, and it was quite a quirky sort of thing. You basically had 6 starter professions, which were more battle types than actual combat professions in an MMO. There was a crafting one, there was one for people who like socialising, the entertainer profession, one for people who like going out and just exploring faraway different places around the world, that's the scout. You got a melee combat and a ranged combat one. I think there was another one there. Was it medic was the starter one? I think so, yeah. So that was for people who like the sort of healing dynamic in group MMO play. And then they all branched off into, I think I show the skill window short at some point during this video, but there was about 40 or 50 actual professions that sort of dovetailed off of the top end of those starter ones, and each of those sort of roughly corresponded to something from Star Wars. So there I am, looking for my resource waypoint. That's the ham system there.
Yeah.
Remember that wacky combination of 3 different health bars, a red one, a green
It's the
one, and a blue
skills,
one.
and they're gone. It's the map, and it's
I should probably pause
and the
longer.
quest journals.
No quests. Yeah, that quest journal. I don't really remember that ever being used. I don't remember quests. Perhaps some of the Jabba's Palace stuff used it, but okay. So, yeah, there we go. No, and it's gone. Damn it, past Tim. Hold on to things for longer. Anyway, off we go.
Run to the
Probably.
wilderness.
Nope, just going to stare for a bit. There we go. Right, so trying to do the surveying to earn some money. So you push M for the overlay map there. That was quite an innovative way of dealing with the maps as well. You can see creatures on it as the little arrowheads.
Yep.
So we're heading that way. You can see the blue pillar of light behind the window in the sky there.
Well, the window you've just conveniently put over the blue pillar of light.
Building in the way. I'm a terrible cinematographer. Yeah, so off we go to try and find the minerals. So once you'd found a hotspot of one of these minerals, and presumably, and it has to be sufficiently far away out of town for you to allow to do it, you could drop actual offline mineral harvesters on there. Basically, structures you put down that would just mine round the clock, as long as you fed them up with power and credits and so on. And then you could just not be logged on for that. So it's not like most MMO crafting.
It's that master artisan. He's got the waypoint. Mine him.
Most of the crafting in MMOs, you're running around a normal combat-heavy landscape with a few blobs of copper or blobs of iron, and you can sort of right-click and mine them 3 times between fights now and then. Here, the whole world was underlaid with this contour map of mineral resources, a vast number of different categories, and that's important because each of the mineral types has about 4 or 5 different attributes, things like conductivity, durability, heat resistance, overall quality. And depending on what you were then going to go and make using the crafting, those different scores would be useful in different applications. So the mineral that you find that's good to make a sword out of might not be any good to make armour out of, because they'd need different sorts of stats. So, oh yeah, here we go, I'm bored of running now. Here comes the free speeder that you got when you log in.
Zoom!
Yep, and there's some monsters there. Rock mites, I think. So we're heading out 65.
You've not got much talk on this thing, have you?
That one's good enough, but I think it's too close to the mission giver. You have to be at least a kilometre away for it to count. Look, wrecked sandcrawler thing.
Could you always survey on the land speeder?
I think so, yeah. Yeah, you get quite a habit of sort of driving one-handed and pinging the thing, as it were. Yeah, so I found high enough one, but it's not near enough, it's saying. It's too near, rather, because they want you to actually, go and do a thing, rather than just sit next to the mission terminal. Of course, the way round that would be to just get a mission from a terminal at one shuttle port, and then go across to another shuttle port almost instantly and survey there. Yeah. Once you found 2 different resources at each end of that, you could just ping-pong backwards and forwards quite rapidly, earning a fair amount of money. But, it wasn't really about the money. You'd earn enough money to do a little bit of shopping now and then, but here we go. These are some player houses. Now we're far enough out from Mos Eisley. Each one of those is a deed in your inventory, and we'll see some building placement later when I put the harvester down. But yeah, and inside there would be enough room for 200 bits of furniture, something like that. And the furniture was all proper placeable in the way that you only really see nowadays in like Rift and so on, with their dimensions. EverQuest 2, I think EverQuest 2 adapted the furniture from here, because EverQuest 2 came afterwards. World of Warcraft came after this. I think this had been going for about a year or 2.
Yeah.
So yeah, opening the map now in these suburbs, you can start to see loads of names floating there, which are NPC merchants that people have set up, and that's such an Ultima Online thing, because the chap largely responsible for all these designs in Ultima Online, Raf Costa, he was largely responsible for the design of all this, and I always thought it was much more than a Star Wars game. It was a 3D Ultima game, but without all the virtues and the medieval backdrop. Instead, you had a sort of pseudo sci-fi bit Star Wars game. A lot of people had a lot of problems with this game because it wasn't very Star Warsy. The first thing you'd expect to do when you log in here is roll up a Jedi and go off and be Luke Skywalker or Darth Vader, and they were very cagey about putting Jedi in at all. Raf Costa recently, on the sort of 15th anniversary of working on this thing, has put up.
You probably want to go to the right.
I can't tell past him to do different things. I don't know what I'm doing there. I'm just sort of lost in suburbia at this point. So there you go, there's a house there with some vendors in, and I have no idea. This is the map of Tatooine area there. You can see some of the iconic cities on there, and also a lot of cities that people have added themselves. So things like No Quarter at the top there, that's a player city, which were largely indistinguishable on the map from normal cities, and they had similar goods and services, which are good. Yeah. A lot of posts by Raf Costa recently about sort of post-mortems about this game, and they're really a fascinating reading for anyone who thinks they like learning about MMO
They're
mechanics.
depressing reading.
Depressing in some ways, yeah. About the pressures of... Well, basically, they didn't want to do Jedi at all, because the idea was that this game was set in the time period between the end of A New Hope and the beginning of Empire Strikes Back. So they hadn't got to Hoth yet, but they'd blown up the first Death Star. So theoretically, there are only 2 Jedi, and they're only supposed to be in hiding anyway. And so the idea that everyone would be running around with waving lightsabers, sort of Phantom Menace style, was something they really didn't want to do.
There you go.
Hey, I'm listening.
You got the hang of it now.
Yeah, I'm such a noob. So some of these structures are factories which will mass produce crafted items. When you craft an item, you can make the item itself, or you can make a blueprint. But the clever thing was that the blueprint required very specific materials, which came and went. This contour map, if you give it a week, that would be different. It might not be there. It might be gone. There might be entirely new resources. So that was a way to solve the problem of, well, why doesn't everyone just set their harvesters up on the hotspot and that would be the end of it? You'd have like a total monopoly. No, well, we'll have the resources move. I mean, I'm not quite sure on the geological backing of how does an entire iron vein vanish overnight and go somewhere else on the planet, but they were very fluid in here, and it did work. It made for content for harvesting people who had to.
It worked up until the point when you figured, screw this, I'm leaving them here. I'll just take what I get. It'll be good again in a couple of weeks.
Well, I played it. I had 3 proper sessions at this. First time as a noob running around and just being agog by the open world sandbox freedom of it all. Second time it was the big.
Your speed is so slow. You've been caught up.
I've been chased by angry animals. Run. Yeah, the second time that was the city project. That was when we sort of had a go at trying to build a community from the ground up on one of the more remote planets, and it worked after a fashion.
Yeah.
But ultimately, people got tired of it. I think that's the message from MMOs in general. People will get tired of anything eventually. And then the third time, yeah, that was my sort of retirement hobby time. I just went in, potted around with some of the bits of it I hadn't seen before, and yeah, that time I just set some harvesters up behind my house and then just waited for the minerals to come to me, because I didn't particularly need any specific minerals. I wasn't trying to max out a profession. Different professions use different types of material, so you'd have to keep moving them around if you wanted the best stuff. And if you were making the stuff to sell to other players, they only want the best, which means you have to be particularly picky about the stuff you're digging up.
That's because players are just too picky.
Well, armour smiths and weaponsmiths and stuff, the stats you got were in a large part based on the stats of the materials you were digging up. So out of that list on the side there with the folders, you had to pick the best one in that category.
You're not very good at driving a speeder.
I'm not, no. I've been playing quite a bit since, actually, and I tend to just walk everywhere these days. It's much more interesting. Get to see stuff along the way. There wasn't a lot to see, though. I mean, they did a really good job of vast open wildernesses in a way that I've not really seen in many MMOs since. Most MMOs, you look at the map of your zone that you're levelling in, you'll be very hard-pressed to find any part of it that doesn't serve some sort of quest-based purpose. This valley is where the monsters that this quest hub needs. This valley is where the dungeon entrance is. This valley is where the city and the trade hub is. In this game, it was literally a 16-kilometre square, 16-kilometre along each edge map. It was just full of more or less nothing, and it was up to you to build your structures and find your monster spawns and so on. The monsters would sort of procedurally and randomly spawn as you sort of moved around. Here we go, placing a harvester. So I can't put it there because there's one already there. Oh, I don't have rights. Apparently I'm in the bounds of Player City. You wouldn't tell to look around you. They never did integrate the cities with the landscape well. I think I saw something in Costa's posts about how they wanted to do that, but it was too difficult. But so when you put your city hall down, suddenly the terrain around you changes to paved slabs and roads and things, and that never really happened. It was always just looked the same. There we go. There's a sort of monster thing. Looks a bit Phantom Menace-y, really. I don't know. That red star next to its health bars means it's quite a few levels above me, so I'm probably going to leave it alone. Where is it? There it is. Knife. Here we go. Right. So now the star has I got about three blocks up on the brawling. So now the star's changed to yellow because it bases the difficulty based on what weapon you're holding and how proficient you are in it. So it changes difficulty just because I picked up the knife, because I'm a bit better at a knife than at unarmed combat. But I'm still probably not going to have a crack at it. There we go, 86. That's probably enough. No? Yes. Right. So now, am I too near the city? No, that's the wrong one. Wrong harvester. There's different sorts of harvesters for different resources. A mineral one, chemical one, moisture evaporators, all that sort of thing. Building not permitted here. Oh, no idea why that.
You're not allowed to build anywhere.
I know. I'm having real planning permission issues in the deserts of Tatooine, which is.
It's NIMBYs.
I know. It's just red tape. That's the problem. Wasn't like that in my day. You could build where you liked. It's saying green. Yay! There it goes. Right. And there it is. So that there. Right. So now we go and use it. Go and open up the structure management window thing. What am I doing? I can't even remember which mineral I'm looking for. Right, there we go. Because they randomly generated the mineral names out of just syllables, so none of them were particularly memorable. So you have to pay it some maintenance. You have to give it some cash, and then you have to give it some power, which is mined through the windmill or the nuclear ones or the solar ones or whatever. If it's got enough each of those, it will carry on functioning. So effectively, you are buying minerals from the ground for in-game cash, but usually at a very reasonable rate, particularly if you've got a high-efficiency harvester.
So you got 4 days there and 8 days on your power. So
Yep, so I could leave that alone for that long. It won't blow up or die or anything in that time. It'll last indefinitely, but in a broken state, and I'd have to pay it a lot of extra money when I come back. But yeah, I could then just log off and leave that going for like 4 days, come back and it'll be full of minerals. So there's the efficiencies on the side, and that's a list of what's underneath it in the different categories. So that's one way to do it. Just plant the harvester wherever you like and don't bother surveying. So just take potluck for what's underneath. Okay, there it goes. Turn it on. There you go. It should be going up and down, making a rumbling noise. Yay, there it goes. Right, I could just leave that now. So I think I do. I think I go and do some stabbing stuff with a knife in a minute.
My favourite kind of gameplay, the walk away and leave it.
It's very sort of offline. It's not offline skill training, but that kind of thing where you maintain your persistence and increase the stickiness of a game by having something somebody wants to come back to, which is the minerals in the harvester or whatever. Right, let's make a tent out of bones and skin. This is part of the scout profession stuff. There's a whole load of traps that you can throw at animals as well that you get to make, and they remarkably increase your levelling in that discipline. Oh, okay. Turns out I don't have enough bone. I think we're going to go off to stab something and take its bones in a minute.
But won't those things need their bones?
No, they don't need their bones. Most bones are quite redundant. You have quite a lot of them. Often
it's true, you do have more bones than you probably need.
Yeah.
Are you going to try and climb that cliff?
Here we go. There's no such thing as an unclimbable cliff in this game. Although it slows you down when you're climbing particularly steep stuff, and if you level up enough scout skill blocks, you get better.
Two of them, you're dead.
God, 2 at once, and they're both yellow. I think. I did think I was going to die at this point.
3 now, you're dead.
Now you notice the almost instantaneous nature. Yeah, I remember to throw a trap at it. There we go. The combat's very sort of instantaneous in here. It's just sudden death and sudden hit and that kind of thing. And there's my bars at the top. I to this day I never really understood the ham system. Health, action, mind. That's the 3 different bars at the top. And if any one of those bars empties itself, you are incapacitated. You fall over. Some monsters will then go for the kill. Most of the time they'll just wander off and leave you at that point, and you recover on your own. And then you take wound damage, which affects the maximums of those bars. But a lot of the skills cost points from those bars to use, so it's in a way it's a bit like necromancer gameplay in some games where you're using your own bars to power the attacks, but if those bars empty then you're going to sort of injure yourself.
Kill the baby.
It was a bit weird, and again in some of Costa's recent posts he sort of explained some of the rationale behind it. They were expecting tactical combat more in the sort of pseudo FPS sense very early on.
How naive.
And also they were anticipating that combat would take place at ranges of like hundreds of meters, from here to that waypoint or here to that mountainside there. But the servers they were given to run the game on initially weren't up to the job at all. So they had to completely redesign the game around an optimum combat distance of about 30 or 40 meters, which made riflemen useless. It just completely screwed with the whole design and dynamic of the game. Also, apparently the ham bars were supposed to be a lot more bouncy. I'm not quite sure what he means by that, but in that they would go up and down more in the sense of spending a mana bar to power abilities rather than this is my health and big massive hits to it. Apparently they should recover quite quickly. It should be a lot more of a dynamic experience. But
all I remember is I used to get told off a lot for having the wrong type of damage.
Yeah, well, this is the thing. You'd have 3 sorts, both in melee and in range, you have 3 sorts of attack. So in the guns, it was pistols would do the red bar generally, the carbines would do the green bar generally, and the rifles would do the blue bar. And that's fine if you're soloing. You just pick the health bar that you want to work on, and as long as that health bar gets to the bottom, you're done. But if you, as a pistolier, were in a group with a rifleman, you would essentially be competing each other, racing each other down the bars to see who could empty their bar first, because the rifleman would be shooting off of bits of blue and the pistolier would be shooting bits of red. So it was an odd system. But in a way, I didn't care. I really wasn't here for the combat, and I don't think in any of my visits of it, or even me playing it a bit now, I care much about the combat as a means to itself. I mean, certainly I kill stuff so that I can skin it, so that I can earn XP in the scouting stuff, like there, like we just saw there. So obviously the monster has to be dead before you can take its skin.
That's just inconsiderate of the monster.
So you have to do some combat, but this game really wasn't about the combat for me at all. It was an incredible sandbox full of... It was a crafting skill heaven. It really was. It was such an intricate and an involved sort of workflow to make a thing, in a way that I've not really seen almost anywhere else. Even online, you could make good items and crap items, and you could put them on sale, and customers could then differentiate between the good and the bad items, and you could charge more for a good item and less for a crap item, in a way that just doesn't happen in MMO economies at all generally, because the sort of expedient leveling up is going to be exactly the same stats no matter who makes it.
Did camps always have that colour picking?
I think so. Yeah. You used to be able to colour in the tent.
Yeah.
It didn't get green though, which is a problem. I'm not quite sure. I don't think there were any red planets. I think, did they add Mustafar at some point?
Yeah, towards the end, Mustafar.
At the very end of its life, there was an expansion pack called the Trials of Obi-Wan.
That wasn't the very end of its life. That was quite young, because that was with the last film.
Well, the Trials of Obi-Wan was I think it sent you to Kashyyyk, the Wookiee planet, and it was really a sort of old school, a sort of more World of Warcraft style theme park style zone. And then about 2 weeks after they released that, they closed the game down.
No, it was a lot longer than that.
Well, it was so close though that they had to give refunds to everyone who bought the thing, which couldn't have helped a lot. Yeah. It was a troubled and quirky existence. I really would recommend reading all 5 of Costa's recent posts, because they do bring back the turbulent time it had.
You got planning permission issues again?
Yeah, I can't put my tent up now because they don't like travellers or something. I don't know. So you'd put your little tent up, and then people stand. You could then use that as a venue for the medics to do the healing and the entertainers to do their healing as well while you were out in the wilds. It was you were supposed to basically put together a team and go out on expeditions, and there would be a job for everyone. The combat medics would help in fights and then treat wounds afterwards. The entertainers would carry the luggage and then play their instruments in the campsite afterwards. Scouts would be very good at debuffing animals. That's all the trap stuff. And then here we go. Here's my little campsite finally. I'm on a desert planet and I've got a roaring fire. Lovely.
Well, it gets cold at night.
It gets cold at night, yeah. And look, a chair you can even sit in. This is the most rudimentary one. As you level up on the scouts, you can make more and more palatial sort of safari hunting camps.
Because that's what you need for a night's sleep.
Yeah, Jeeves. More poached eggs in the morning. Jolly good. Full kitchen facilities and all that. Fishing pole. Here we go. So this is an example of the material stuff. So this fishing pole needs different sorts of materials. That one needs some plasticky stuff and then some metals. The different symbols are in the different categories, and then as you highlight each one, different bar appears. No, I'm not going to make my fishing rod out of radioactives, thank you.
Oh, that was a good one.
Yeah, so that's not bad.
Well, is it?
And it goes in the slots that highlight. That one, back. No, I've only got 4 of those. I need more. So that would have been a good one if I'd have taken more of it when I found the stuff. See, a lot of these were gained by hand sampling rather than setting up an overnight harvester, so you only get small dribs and drabs just to see what the quality of the material's like. You can see the stats in the bottom corner, and over on the other side you see the bit going red and green and yellow. That is the particular stat of the material that will affect the quality of the thing you're making.
Go back to your copper.
So for a fishing rod, it's unit toughness, but conductivity would be useful for blasters and crafting tools and that sort of thing. Melee weapons want toughness and overall quality and stuff like that. So you'd look through these different materials gathered at various times and in quantities using the different sorts of harvester in the attempt to make a really good fishing rod. That was sort of a sort of quest I'd make for myself, is to try and make the perfect fishing rod.
Can I just point out you are making a fishing rod on a desert planet?
I am, yes. I found water on Tatooine. I think further in the south there's like a little oasis, so it's possible to fish there. So there at the bottom you see there 20 whatever %. That can be increased in a sort of little gambling mini game if you use one of the deplaceable public crafting stations, big piece of furniture. You stand next to it and it links up with your crafting tool and lets you gamble to make it even more powerful. Quality 50 something, that's not bad. I think the one I already got's a bit better. Oh, that's the one I got at the top of the air. So I end up making one that's not quite as good. Disappointing.
Yeah.
But there you go. I mean, and that sort of goes on and becomes far more elaborate. And you have sort of various subcomponents, armor plates that go into pieces of wearable armor and that sort of thing, or storage hoppers that go in that you have to make first that then go into a harvesting machine, that sort of thing. It was just an amazing game for crafters because you had the whole deal, and uniquely, I think, the ability to make items of varying quality, to be good at crafting, not just doing crafting the way it's supposed to be done. If you click here, you have these materials, you push this button, you're guaranteed to make an item with those stats because all those items have that stats. In here, it was up to you to be good at it. You'd have to find the decent materials, efficiently mine them. You'd have to set up some sort of sales network. You see on this overview map there on the top, you see vendor this and that, vendor such and such, vendor such and such. These are people with the merchant profession who've set up vendors that can be seen on the map. So as I'm running through going about my business, look, another player down there.
Wow.
the blue arrowheads on the map, the light blue ones are other players. So I'm going off to have a look at these shops now. I was just passing. I thought, oh yeah, I could do with some whatever they're selling. So you see they become visible on the map, and you can pop into the house and have a look. And we get to have a look at some of the interior of the player housing as well. That big one's the one we're going towards. So all these bits of furniture, a lot of the furniture was made by the architect profession, because you can't just make houses all day. But some of it's like mission rewards and special loot from particular places, trophies. Okay, let's see what we got in here.
Oh, you broke your camp.
My camp's been abandoned. I got too far away. That means I don't get any XP anymore if other people come and sit in it for a bit. That was a slow way to level up a profession. Each of the professions had their own XP, different sorts of XP that you got for doing that profession. It made a lot of sense. It was quite good. Yeah, so there they are, NPC vendors that have been bought and paid for by someone with a merchant profession. Let's have a little look. And then we've got some tables and posters and things. That's all been placed by the owner of this house. We go in here, all sorts of stuff. This is the products of a chef profession. They make buffs. You eat the food you get. They're making it by the crate as well. So your factory crate, that will contain X number of units of the thing, probably 20 or so. You just work your way through them as you're adventuring. You get various specific buffs by the different sorts of food. So yeah, a whole chef profession based on... you harvest like wheat and cereal and stuff as well, but also meat from the scouts who are like me, who are harvesting from dead animals. Can be then turned into organic materials used in some of the food. So we've got some weapons here. Different. Yeah, I'm looking for a blade. Yeah, I think that'll be the next sort of. The Rick blade is the next one up on the skill tree. So the next time I get a block of stabbing people, I'll be able to use that. So there's me getting some prices. Here we go. So here's the skill tree. This is the artisan window. So that along the bottom, that green bar, is 250 skill points in total, which is a very similar system to Ultima Online. And each time you purchase competence in one of these blocks, you deduct from that total, and eventually you'll run out of skill points. But you can surrender blocks as well and gain them back. So you could retrain across into another profession entirely, but you can only be good at so much stuff, which is the key, which means people need other people. In practice, what tends to happen is on this server is people have alts, but in the original game you weren't allowed alts. It was one character per server. Precisely to preserve this kind of interdependency. If you wanted chef stuff, you had to go and find a chef. Couldn't just grind it up yourself.
And boy, did people complain.
Well, yeah, it's the idea of enforced grouping starts to be a problem there. So yeah, I've switched it to all professions mode there, and have a look at the sidebar there. There's all sorts of stuff: droid engineer, shipwright. The jump to lightspeed stuff isn't in on SWGMU. They've got the intention of doing it at some point, but I think they're working on getting the basic game done.
I just remembered I meant to play a droid engineer back in the day.
That was my first choice as well, but apparently droids were rubbish because the designer of the creature handler profession really loved pets and did a really good job, and the droid engineer was a bit of an afterthought. So the droids were just nowhere near as good as tamed animals for combat or pretty much any other purpose. There's the various scout blocks that I'll need to work on and fill in. Some of them you get XP for skinning animals. Some of them you get XP for throwing traps at animals. And I think there's a wilderness survival one you get for making tents. So, lots of... It's a bit grindy. So the basic potted history of Star Wars. Then it's launched in this state here. The SWG EMU lot of basically making pre-CU, pre-NGE Galaxies. So then the combat upgrade came along because people weren't... A lot of people had trouble conceptually with it. People who rocked up wanting to be Luke Skywalker and shooting stuff and finding this weird sandbox game, which was more about socialising and crafting than anything else and wasn't terribly Star Warsy. So they did a massive pass which got rid of the existing... I think the original game had 10 combat levels, or 12 or so, based on the number of blocks of a particular fighting profession you go with. And then beyond that, monsters just gained more and more hit points and were meant to be fought in groups. Then there was all sorts of craziness with doctor buffs, which meant you became superhuman. And then after that, they decided, all right, let's rip all that out and just give everyone a character level from 1 to 80. Standard MMO style. This was after WoW had come and become a massive success. They decided to sort of retrofit this game to have the standard 80 character levels, the standard progression, which made sense for combat classes, but was really weird and punitive for anyone who wasn't a fighter. So
I'm not very impressed by their decorating skills.
I think they just have this as a shop, probably, yeah. Just somewhere to put the vendors in. You can't put the vendors out in the wilds on their own, so they need to be in a building. So a lot of people had house slots used up as stores rather than any kind of personal dwelling. Yeah. So the combat upgrade sort of screwed with everything, and then to sort of try and paper over the cracks in some fashion, they did the NGE, which is the new game edition, and that basically... It changed all the classes to become one of like 7 or so, and they were each based on a character from A New Hope. You literally on the login screen had pictures of Han Solo, Princess Leia, who I think was the sort of squad commander type archetype. There was a Luke Skywalker. You could roll a Jedi straight from character creation, and then just to hell with it, this off we go. And it all comes back to the holocron grind and the Jedi era, the various different methods they used under pressure from marketing to make Jedi more and more accessible in the game, because rightly so, I imagine, a lot of people rocked up to this game wanting to be Luke Skywalker. And, at the end of the day, who are they to deny you? This game would have done so much better, I think, if it hadn't been a Star Wars game. The core elements that people loved about it, the systems, the design, just the sandbox of it all, had very little to do with Star Wars at all. Yes, they were set on desert planets with vaguely Moroccan-looking buildings, and some of the guns had names you might remember from the films, but on the whole it was essentially a kind of sci-fi Ultima Online more than anything else, and I think they should have probably left it at that.
Yeah, but you can't sell new IP, apparently.
Yeah, so they were under a lot of pressure. Like, we want Jedi unlocked by Christmas, and the process to get Jedi was really obscured, deliberately on purpose, to try and make them rare and precious. And then the Hollow Grind era came along, where they decided, okay, to become Jedi you need to master 4 professions. And they didn't tell you which ones it was, and it was different for every individual player. So if you wanted to be a Jedi, the shortest route to doing it was to basically work through the professions in alphabetical order, grinding out their requirements to mastery in gameplay styles that were not of your choice, that you didn't like, because each of the professions was essentially a different kind of gameplay style rather than just all different sorts of marksmen. And eventually you might have got Jedi, and then there was loads of Jedi, and it just sort of fell apart from there, really. And it just never really recovered from that. Combat upgrade, then New Game Edition, then eventually the Old Republic came along, and we're not going to have two competing Star Wars.
No, kind of that.
So I think,
although the Old Republic's barely Star Wars.
I think SWG probably had the license pulled on the basis of it.
Yeah, it did.
It wasn't really learned.
Well, the license
anyway.
went over to EA exclusively. So even if that hadn't come along, Galaxies would still have shut.
There we go. I've found 60 gemstones while I was running around shopping.
Well,
no effort from me. Fantastic.
Most productive you've been so far.
So I'll take those and then leave it there overnight. Yeah. So I miss it. I do. I can see why it's gone, and I don't think it's a particularly viable game these days. But it's fascinating. I mean, people always still talk. There's my camp still there. Look. People still talk about fond memories, and many of those memories are about the community and the people, and the guilds and the cities and stuff. The gameplay itself, or the crafting, has certainly not been replicated since.
Well, it was a game that had enough support from the players to make it one of the few games which actually has a fully featured emulator.
Yes. Well, this is basically fully featured. I think Jedi are not in, and I don't think they're that fussed about putting them in, to be honest. And I think Jump to Lightspeed, which was the sort of the space fighty X-Wing versus TIE Fighter style edition that came along later, and that was really good as well. But that's a whole other game to bolt onto the side, I suppose. So you'd do that after you've got everything going in here. But this is absolutely I can't spot the difference, to be honest, playing this thing here. Oh, hello. I can't spot the difference. So I think if anyone either didn't get a chance to look at it properly back in the day, or misses it and did have a go and wants to play it again, have a look. Look for SWG Emu. This is the Basilisk server, and you will need the original discs. So, and I think that's why they haven't been swatted, because they're not actually doing software piracy, in a sense. I don't know. I don't care, to be honest, about mothballed abandonware copyright laws or whatever. This thing exists and is brilliant. I reckon you should go and check it out. And with that, we'll see you next time.
Goodbye.